Hi everyone. I want to tell you about a cool new product that I have been developing along with a team at a genetics company called ADNTRO based in Spain. This company is a DNA discovery company. Sometimes we'll also hear them referred to as DNA ancestry companies. These are where you provide some of your saliva and the company generates a genetic profile based upon your saliva of your DNA code. Won't be the entire DNA code of every single base pair, but it will be hundreds of thousands or millions of places in your DNA code, genome-wide, that identify you uniquely. And these companies will then show you how you relate to other people in the world, as well as tell you things about yourself based upon your DNA code. The product that I have been involved with has to do with DNA ancestry, and it's a cool new way to visualize your ancestry as informed by your DNA code relative to the ancestries of other peoples around the world. Where do you fit into the global picture of humanity? Genetically, how similar are you to others? What can we learn about your heritage, where your ancestors came from, by looking at your DNA and comparing it to the DNA of many people from throughout the world? The exciting thing about this product that we've been developing is that it is free. You can access this product for free as long as you have already used a DNA discovery or DNA ancestry service where you can get your DNA raw file, as it's called, and download it and provide it to ADNTRO. As long as you have that raw file, and we'll talk about how you obtain it, you can upload it to ADNTRO for free, and you can see this DNA ancestry product that we've been developing for free. The first step in this process, as I said, is to download your raw data from one of these companies, or for a fee, you can have ADNTRO do this service for you, so you don't have to use another company. But if you've already paid using another company, you can bring that over to ADNTRO for free. Otherwise, I would recommend that you get a kit from ADNTRO, provide them your saliva, and you can get your DNA code genotyped by ADNTRO instead. Some of the big companies in this marketplace are 23andMe, ancestry.com, and MyHeritage. I am providing links in the show notes that show you how to download this raw data from those companies that you would then bring over to ADNTRO for this new ancestry analysis. So see the show notes for those instructions for getting your raw data from those companies. The first thing you have to do with that raw data is uncompress it. I will show you first how to do that on a Mac computer. Immediately following, within this same video, I will show you how to do that on a Windows computer. This is a quick splice to ask you to consider subscribing to my channel by hitting the subscribe button. It does not cost anything. It is totally free. But if you like what I am doing and want to support my work, I encourage you to visit patreon.com/joshbanta and make a voluntary contribution. The link is in the show notes below. Your support helps me to deliver new content and keep this channel current and vibrant. Thank you. On a Mac computer, you want to open up what's called the Finder, and you want to navigate to your Downloads folder and locate the raw data file that you downloaded from your DNA discovery or genetic ancestry, whichever term you prefer, provider. Double-click on that file. This opens up a program called Archive Manager, which uncompresses the file. The original file that we downloaded was 5.8 megabytes. Uncompressed, the file is now 16.7 megabytes in my case. The file must be uncompressed first in order for you to utilize it. Next, right now I will show you how to uncompress this file if you are using a Windows style operating system, if you're using a Windows operating system. All right, so on a Windows machine, the process is very similar. Open up File Explorer and navigate to your Downloads folder. Find the file that we just downloaded with your raw data and double-click on it. This is showing you inside of the archived file, but we need to get the data out of that archive so that it can be accessed. To do that, take the text file within the archive and drag it to your downloads. And now, when we look in the downloads folder, we can see that the uncompressed version of the genomic data is there. And you can see it's represented as a text file rather than as an archived zip file. So now we have this file and it is in our downloads folder. I will now turn back to the rest of the tutorial, which is done on a Mac, but the steps are the same. The next step in this process is to visit ADNTRO.com. ADNTRO.com, which is the company that I have been working with on this product. Mine automatically comes up in English. If yours comes up in Spanish, click on the flag below and you can choose English, or there's other languages available as well if desired. The next thing you want to do is click on Go to App. From this login screen, the next thing you want to do is click on the button here on the right that says See Our Products. The second item on the list says Upload your raw genetic data. Click on Select. Assuming you're not a current customer, you need to click the button that says Sign Up and create a new account. Once you've created your account, you will come to this screen that says Upload your file. So you need to choose the file. So click where it says Choose File. Navigate to your Downloads folder. Choose the file. Now choose the file that's .txt and click on Open. There will be a process where, for a minute or two, where your sample is validated to make sure that it is compatible. Mine was compatible. Mine comes from 23andMe. Next, you select your gender. And there's optional information which you can choose to provide or not. And then you click the button that says Process My Sample. When finished, when your sample has been processed, visit the dashboard and click on the module that says Ancestral Shape. You can learn the technical details about this analysis by clicking on the blog article. I believe the blog article is in Spanish, but Google Chrome will allow you to translate it into English. But let's get right to it and see what the results are. The first thing that you will see is called a stacked bar plot. This is based upon your genetic code genotype from tens of thousands of places in your DNA code. What these other lines represent here are other individuals from throughout the entire world. If you just look up and down in a particular line, that's one specific person. So there's an arrow which points on this map of global genetic diversity to which vertical line represents you. So in my case, the vertical line that represents me is right here. Now, I should say that your data is private. You won't be sharing anything unless you want to be. These results are available only to you. And the other results of all of these other people that you're seeing in this stacked bar plot of global genetic diversity are from a separate research study that is not connected to ADNTRO. Their genetic data is public. They are anonymous and their genetic data is public, and they agreed to make their genetic data public. So you don't have to share anything that you don't want to. What you're looking at right now with your own data will only be available to you unless you choose to share it with others. So again, it's hard to understand what this all means unless we zoom in. So this is me right here. And this stacked bar plot adds up to 100%. The small portions of this bar plot are small portions of my genetic ancestry, whereas the large portion, it represents the largest component of my ancestry. So I am mostly European, with small components of East Asian, South Asian, African, and Native American ancestries showing up in my profile. So this bar here is a blown up version of this really, really fine scale bar here. So you can't really see it here because it's so thin. But if we take just my DNA ancestry and pull it out, and we make the bar wider so we can see this is what you have. And there's a bar like that for all of these different persons, all of these different thousands of persons. And these persons' ancestries are comprised of an African ancestry, a Native American ancestry, European ancestry, East Asian ancestry, and South Asian ancestry. In this stacked bar plot view over here, we have the global genetic diversity organized by what region of the world this person came from. So this first set of ancestries over here is all persons who came from Africa. And the red represents African ancestry. So even people within Africa have some portion of their ancestry that comes from places outside of Africa. Well, there's some who do not, but many, many of them do. Same thing with here in Europe. Persons from Europe have ancestries that also come from places outside of Europe. So if you're primarily of European ancestry, but you had a great-great-grandmother who was Native American, then that would show up in your ancestry profile by the unique Native American DNA provided by your great-great-grandmother as a small sliver of Native American ancestry. And this second portion of the stacked bar plot graph here is DNA that was collected from persons from the Americas, North and South America. And that's a very interesting case because we can see Native American heritage represented in green. But we can also see, and some individuals are purely made up of Native American heritage, but we also see from the Americas persons who have a mixed heritage of European, Native American represented in green, as well as African represented in red. And this is because of the complex history of the Americas, where there was the slave trade from Africa, and there was European colonizers who all intermixed, creating a complex genetic mosaic among persons from the Americas. So that's why this particular set here is so complex. You have some persons from the Americas who are mostly Native American in their ancestry. You have persons from the Americas who are mostly European in their ancestries. This next block here is persons from Europe. Here's persons from South Asia. And here's persons from East Asia. In every one of these cases, you can see that persons, even if they're from South Asia, will often have significant contributions to their ancestries from persons outside of South Asia. And this is because of the complex patterns of human migration, where even if persons who are primarily have ancestors from a particular region of the world where they live, they may have some distant ancestors that migrated to that part of the world from somewhere else. And that will be reflected in this person's genetic profile. We can also compare my ancestry to those of the average European. So here's my ancestry pulled from that stacked bar plot. Here is the ancestry of the average European. So I am actually more European than the average European, and less East Asian, less South Asian, and more African. And I have more heritage associated with Native Americans than the average European. Next is the really unique thing about our study that we provide to you through ADNTRO. This shows a comparison of your ancestral components to the ancestral components of others from throughout the world. And again, the other ancestral components the other persons represented on here where you see their ancestral components are these persons who agreed to provide their genetic data anonymously, not connected to ADNTRO. This is publicly available data. And this graph here is only shown to you unless you choose to share it with others and make it available. And here's what it shows. It shows how similar your ancestral compositions are to other people from Europe. So you can see that my ancestral proportions, although I have a little bit more purely European ancestry than the average European, my ancestral contributions are very similar to other Europeans. So I look like a typical European in terms of my genetic makeup, the different ancestries that comprise me. I also look like some peoples from the Americas. And this is because so many peoples from the Americas have European ancestry because of all of the European colonization of North and South America. But I'm also not very similar. I'm quite different from some people from the Americas. And these are people that have a much higher component of Native American ancestry. So I'm not very similar to them. I'm not very similar to people from East Asia or from Africa, although there are some populations in Africa that I am more similar to than others. And I'm not particularly similar to people from South Asia, although I'm more similar to some people from South Asia than others. And again, this is comparing my ancestral contributions to persons from these other populations throughout the globe. And what this provides is my unique ancestral shape. And what you can do is you can compare your ancestral shape to others. So I can compare my ancestral shape to the average African. And you can see that my similarities to peoples in the world is very different from the average African's similarities to peoples in the world. We could try East Asia, and there you can compare my shape in blue to the average East Asian. You can also compare your shape to other members of the ADNTRO community. But in order to do that, you have to share access to your sample. And what you do is you provide a nickname to protect your anonymity. But if you know another ADNTRO customer, you can find out their nickname, and you can then compare your shape to their shape. And again, this is all available for free. I really hope that you'll try it out, and I hope that you will find it to be very valuable.